You ready?
I'm ready.
We're ready. Hey guys, this is episode 3. What is it?
It's 4, bro.
Episode 4?
4.
All right. Welcome to episode 4 with Aaron and Andrew. Today we're taking a very different approach. We're going to be talking about a contrary viewpoint, kind of as the center to our whole talk. And it's going to be the importance of comparing yourself to other people. Most people think you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. You should only compare yourself to your previous self. And we're here to say that's wrong.
That's wrong.
That you need to compare yourself to other people. It's a vital skill set. It's one that will prevent you from doing a lot of unnecessary work. You'll be more satisfied in your life. And we go kind of meandering through this in a very conversational way. I really enjoyed the talk, but we didn't really have an intro. So we're doing it now. So yeah, hopefully.
But you're not going to know that because we're going to put it at the front.
No, we can keep that in. Anyways, enjoy the conversation. We start off talking about some different ways, different things like the island and different books. But then we dive right into the interesting stuff. So
yeah, and let us know how you think about this style because we definitely enjoyed it a lot and we're trying to orient how we're going to do each episode. So let us know what you think.
Thanks for watching. All right, so what do we want to talk about today? We're talking about a contrary opinion.
All right. Why? Why do you want to talk about contrarian opinions?
Well, I'm not talking about contrarian opinions. I'm saying we're talking about one.
Okay, why? But in general, what is the motivation to do that? Are you just trying to piss people off? Are you trying to get that negative feedback?
I mean, part of me likes that, yeah. If I'm being super honest. I'll be super honest, yeah, for sure. I like poking buttons. I like pushing people the wrong way. I like getting a reaction.
But why is that? I think it's important, right? Because those contrarian opinions are where you find those secrets, right? They're where you find the truths that are kind of hidden. Like so many people think that there's some conventional truth that everyone follows. But when everyone just follows a conventional truth, they're not really thinking about it. And so in those places, I think, or at least Peter Thiel thinks, which I tend to agree with, that's where you find the big contrarian truths, where everyone thinks one way and then you dive into it and you find, wait, no, it's actually works this other way. And then out of that, you can create something that it really is transformative because it gets people out of the non-thinking mode. And now they find out all these new possibilities by thinking this other way.
Mm-hmm. Well, so to me, on the surface, I like poking buttons, right? I like creating arguments. I like friction.
Right.
I like confrontation.
Like if someone confidently tells me something, like their opinion, my first thought is to try to pick it apart.
Yeah.
And even if I don't believe in it, like I don't care about what I'm talking about, and I think part of the reason I do that is convince me that your opinion is valid. Mm-hmm. Don't just say it confidently, convince me with content. And I'm going to do all that I can to pick it apart to make sure that it's worth changing my mind.
Exactly. And at the base of this is the foundation for philosophy. It's actually looking for the truth within somebody's confidence, within somebody's belief. It's not taking at face value something that is said to be true. It's actually like, well, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical about it. Actually, I'm going to be a lot of bit skeptical about it and seek further understanding and also maybe poke holes in your understanding so that you can see your own biases.
Right.
And so it's really the foundation of seeking truth in a philosophical fashion. So it's not just being an asshole, but it's actually like trying to discover truer statements. And it's at the heart of the Hegelian dialectic and means nothing to you.
The hell is
that? Hegel, I don't know how to pronounce his name, German philosopher, came up with a dialectical method. And he proposed this idea for all of evolution and the evolution of ideas. And it's that essentially it starts off with an assertion. So saying, the world is flat. Okay. And then there comes a negation to that assertion. This is a really simplified version, but that's saying the world is not flat. And then people go from believing the assertion to believing the negation. And then when those two ideas kind of come together, there's some new truth that comes out of it, some real truth. So like, oh, actually the earth is round. Now people believe the earth is a perfect sphere. And then
the earth is round, but it appears flat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then people think, oh, it's a perfect sphere. But then somebody else goes along and says, oh, it's not a perfect sphere, actually.
Right.
And now with this new assertion, somebody else says different. And then the new truth comes out. Oh, it's actually an elliptical sphere. Like it's not perfectly circular. It's more like there's a little bit
And it fluctuates, right? Depending on where the moon's at, and because liquid is in a solid, so it has. That's why we have the tides,
And all of this is how science evolves, is through this dialectic, and so this is how philosophical points evolve, and it's a really important stance, and the common thinker doesn't get to that stage,
right? And well, that's what I was gonna say is like, this seems like the foundation of like the scientific method, or how to think about things scientifically, where like there is your first statement, the earth is flat, that's a hypothesis, right? I'm not saying it's fact, I'm saying this is what I think. But then you have to go and test it, and then you have to get peer reviewed, and then it has to be reworked, and then you create a new overarching theory, right? And that's how we get to truths. It's not like we know it right off the bat, right? And that's these philosophies playing around with these ideas and playing devil's advocate with each other. That's how they come to these deeper underlying truths, right? And yeah, it's a little sad that a lot of that's lost in today's age, where you go onto Twitter or whatever, and someone posts a quick little couple sentences as fact, and then it's either you agree or disagree, and there's no common ground, right?
I don't even think it's you either agree or disagree. I think it's you either experience an emotion or you don't. And if you experience an emotion, no matter what that emotion, you share it. Whether you agree or disagree, it's like, did it trigger the heart rate increase? Yes, shared. Whether it's agree or disagree. So I don't think it's about a yes or a no. It's either like, oh, this made me feel amazing, or this made me feel pissed. I'm sharing that shit.
Yeah. Well, looking at maybe statistical averages, but I would hope to believe there's some people who try to use that platform to share information into open dialogue for a deeper understanding.
There definitely are.
I hope there is. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the majority, or at least
it's not common.
Yeah, and it's that thing that like, a small 5% of a population that uses a service like that could, take over and be like 50% of the viewership. That's what eyeballs are looking at. And so it's, it's like that with anything, you get a couple bad cookies and it ends up making the whole batch look bad,
Couple bad cookies. Your restaurant's got to close.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
So I like it. So what do you got to say? What's your truth that you're trying to get at?
Well, are we gonna keep doing this practice run?
No, we're going. We're just going. No, we're going. Just keep going.
So yeah, my contrarian truth is most people think that you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. Most people think comparing yourself to other people is bad. It gives you the wrong goals. It lowers your self-esteem, and it's unfair to yourself.
Okay.
And my perspective is you need to compare yourself to other people. We are a species that specializes in learning through other people. We learn vicariously. Right. We also get correct self-concepts by comparing ourselves to other people. And by ignoring this tool and skill set, we get worse at it, and we lose our ability to gauge how we fit in with our society. We find ourselves more isolated and confused as to how to understand our own successes and failures. And so by avoiding comparing yourself to other people, you get worse at it.
Right.
And then comparing yourself to other people makes you feel shitty because you're bad at it.
Right.
Because a lot of people compare themselves to the wrong reference group. So I would say don't compare yourself to the people you see on Instagram.
Right.
Because the people that are popular on Instagram are not regular people. They're not people that are in your reference group, and they're only posting certain things that make them look a certain way.
Right.
So yeah, that's a horrible idea, but
yeah,
you have to compare yourself to other people. That's my stance.
I totally agree. And if you look outside, let's say individuals, and you think about it in the terms of history, like if let's say like countries and governments didn't look at past history of what happened, why they happened, and what became of that, then they're not going to be prepared for the new things to come, right? And so it's like almost common sense in the idea for when you're thinking big terms to look to the past to find out information that you could use in the future. And so if we're using it in these like big terms, why wouldn't it work also for an individual, right? I hope that's a common thing for governments and countries, and to look back and say, okay, we went to World War II because of X, Y, and Z. So, and then this is what came out of it. And so now because that happened, we're going to make these new policies that prevent X, Y, and Z from happening, right? Just very simple, broad terms. But Yeah. So I agree with you on the individual term.
So what you said was comparing to the past and to the future. Isn't that just comparing yourself to your own past and your own future?
Yeah, but also it's like, let's say the United States is, going all the way back to looking at how the Roman Republic acted and then how it fell, and trying to take those examples. Or like if you're a war general, looking at all the way back to Roman generals, or current war, like whatever. It's like you learn from that, whether they're within your own country or a different country. And so, yes, I think obviously you should be comparing your past self with your future self, aligned with the goals or the system you put in place to make sure you're on the trajectory that you wanted. But also it's just as valuable, if not more, like you said, to compare yourself to others too. But I think they're hand in hand. Like by comparing yourself with others, other people's past, future, and present, is a technique that you should also employ on yourself to make sure that you're going in the direction you want. Right? No?
Yeah. I agree with you.
All right. Am I rambling here?
Yeah, it was just very circular.
Okay.
Most people would say don't compare yourself to other people. So
why do you think they say that?
Because you might get your feelings hurt. You might have the wrong idea. You might aim for the wrong goals.
Yeah.
You might be influenced by other people's definition of success. It's unfair to yourself. You don't know how long they've been doing it. Like there's so many reasons. It's the same reason people have tried to get their kids not to keep score in games. Like,
oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, well, I want to protect their feelings and all this other soft shit. But so for a long time, I have even told people, because I worked as a personal trainer, and I would tell them, don't compare yourself to me. I've been doing this for way too long. I spend too long working towards these goals because
more than the normal person.
I need to be ahead of anybody I work with. That way I have things to teach them.
Right.
So I would say, don't compare yourself to me. Compare yourself to you last week. But really, I wanted to say, compare yourself to people who are like you.
Right.
Compare yourself to somebody with a similar build.
Yeah. Think about your 5 closest friends and see, are you at the top of those 5 friends? And depending on whatever category you're looking at, are you at the bottom tier? I mean, I think that's a good place to start in a lot of ways. Obviously, when you get stuck on comparing yourself to the people you're around the most, you may never be able to leave there. But at the same time, it's like, you can really, by looking at your 5 closest friends, and if you're at the very top and you're like, wow, my friends are lagging way below on all these things that I care about, maybe it's time for new friends, right? Or to spend less time with those friends and start incorporating new ones, right?
So I think comparing yourself to your friends, it's good for you to audit who you hang out with, but I think that's a symptom of being bad at comparing yourself to other people. I think comparing yourself...
Fuck. Should we pause it? Put it back on?
Yeah, let's put it back on.
All right. Fuck. Pause it.
You can't pause it.
All right. Fucking A, man.
That's really funny.
All right. Hold on.
Well, I think that's a good opportunity to start over.
No. Just keep talking. I like it.
Well, I know, but I was like...
Just keep doing a monologue.
God damn it. All right. Monologue time. Ready? So... more often than not, we compare ourselves with other people strictly out of convenience. So it's like, okay, well, who am I near? Who do I know? Who am I being shown? So you're either going to be comparing yourself to people you're friends with, people you work with, or people you see on TV or on various social media platforms. And with that, you are comparing yourself by a reference or to a reference group by chance. So you're relying on chance, and chance is the ultimate tyrant. Like you're not in charge. You're not taking a designed approach to who you're comparing yourself to. And so you have no way to gauge or measure goals or actually take into account what you want out of life. So rather than comparing yourself to groups of convenience, the idea is to compare yourself to people you want to be like, people you imagine you want to be like, or people with skills that you admire. Because, so for children, when they're growing up, they get an accurate self-concept. They get an accurate self-esteem by comparing themselves to other people performing tasks. So you understand, oh, I'm actually really bad at coloring. You know, when you're a kid and you draw a shitty tree and you look over at that person and it's like, well, that looks like the Christmas tree I put my presents under. Like, so you would go, oh, I'm bad at drawing. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, but building blocks, I'm really good at building blocks compared to that kid and compared to that kid. You start getting an accurate idea of what your strengths are. And until you get an accurate idea of what your strengths are, you're wandering blindly through the night.
Okay.
But if you have an accurate understanding of your strengths, then you can start sequestering your time to those strengths. You can start realizing that you actually have a gift in certain areas that you should work to manifest. And it's not until you compare yourself to other people that you recognize your own gifts.
Okay. I have a little pushback on this.
Take it.
Okay. So there's the whole stereotype of there's math people and then there's writing people, mm-hmm. right? And a lot of the times this is harped upon at a young age. And so, you know, by the time you're in 4th, 5th grade, you're like denoted as a math kid, right? And so what that does to a lot of people is it makes them hyper focus on the math and not focus on the other subject that they're not as good at because they like being good at things. Mm-hmm. And then they go through life in that way. And now they may have missed out on some of this other aspect. And I think it's easier to use the other example of being a non-math person and writing people, where by the time you get to, 20, 22, you're deathly afraid of math. And it's a huge wall to reach new outcomes and possibilities. Like if you think you're not a math person, you're 25, you don't like your career, and you let's say, you want to get into something that involves a little bit of math and science or schooling that requires a certain amount. Well, if you think, oh, there's no way I could do that, it might prevent you altogether from exploring that option. Mm-hmm. So, I just think, I think you need to realize your strengths and weaknesses, but at the same time, make sure that's done on your own merit and by you actually putting your effort into it and trying and not allowing someone else's opinion or stereotype that you're not a math person prevent you from attempting it.
So I think this again comes down to being a poor reference group creator.
But what if your teacher tells you that? I mean, it's like as a kid, you're like, well, this is the person I should be listening to about stuff like this, right?
Well, if your teacher tells you you're not a math person, your teacher's an asshole. Like,
yeah, true.
Sure. Like they're like, oh yeah, you suck at math. No teacher is saying that. If they are saying that, they shouldn't be a fucking teacher. But what I'm saying,
well, they might not say you directly, but they do say that exists overall.
Yeah, but some people are going to go to the point of saying, well, teachers shouldn't give kids Fs because that says they're bad at math. Like, well, no, that kid deserves to know he got an F.
Yes, of course.
I believe firmly that there are people who have brain structures that are more analytical, more deductive, more geared towards math. There are people whose brain structures are more geared towards verbal acuity. There are people that can do both. More people are going to be able to do both,
right,
if given the opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is the person who is not geared directly towards math compares himself to the person who has a natural gift of mathematical deduction.
Totally.
Now that they're comparing themselves to the wrong reference group, they're going to feel shitty about themselves. They're going to say, I'm never going to be able to do it like him. And he can do it easily. Why do I have to work so hard? Instead, they should compare themselves to people within their reference group, somebody who is good at verbal stuff, not so great at math, but is learning to do it better and succeeding. Mm-hmm. And then striving to be like that. Okay, how did you succeed so well? Well, what efforts did you make to learn? Oh, you had to try a little bit harder. You had to take this different approach. You had to learn math or physics in a story structure at first,
yeah.
So having the proper comparison group will make it so you can apply the things that person did to acquire success. Having the wrong reference group is going to make it so you're making unfair comparisons. Harkening back to my experience as a trainer, it was like I'm taking somebody who has, they're not an ectomorph, they're an endomorph. And so their body is just geared towards
fat,
adding fat.
Yeah, me.
Right?
No, I'm a mesoendo, I like to say.
But Okay, well, whatever. But so if that person is comparing themselves to a bodybuilder, they're fucked. Like,
right,
go ask a bodybuilder what he does to keep his body. And the person who's an endomorph is like, well, I'm not doing that. Like, but if they compare themselves to another endomorph who's having success, and they get to say, you know, what did you do? How did you modify your lifestyle to make this, you know, compatible with everything else you have going on? Then they can start acquiring real methods for success that they can apply to themselves.
Right.
So it's about the proper comparison group, the proper reference group, and comparing themselves accordingly. So again, it comes down to, are you good at comparing with other people? Are you good at picking your reference group?
And also, not only like, okay, for example, maybe something with like working out or being good at math when you don't have the skills yet. Sometimes it's not necessarily like, oh, you have to get better at these certain movements or these certain things. Really, it's this underlying principle of maybe you need to build discipline, and you need to learn how to structure discipline in your life. And like, for example, like I read some books on like Jocko Willink. Yeah. And he talks all about discipline, and, you know, he comes from a total different background than I do. Like, I'm not a military person per se, and he's pretty hardcore.
Not even per se. You can just say you're not a military person.
I'm not a military person.
You can get rid of per se.
Yeah. There you go. And so a lot of like, he uses like real life military examples to help like personify these principles that could be played out in business. But although I don't match his like personality profile perfectly, I can still take out huge like truths from that I can apply to my life. So it's not only like picking your good reference group, but then once you understand what type of person you are, then being able to pull out good information from other reference groups and apply it to yourself correctly.
Well, you know, I mean, using Jocko Willink is unfair because it's not like you were comparing yourself to a military person who is just spouting military truths. You're using somebody who is very good at framing their lessons from their sphere of life to be compatible with other people from other spheres. So he did the work. He was doing the work for you.
I agree. I totally agree. But still, like, I still compare myself to him. Like, oh, I got up at 7:30 this morning. I didn't get up at 4:30 like he did. Like, oh, I'm behind. And it's like, if you think of it like that, that might be wrong.
That is super wrong.
Exactly.
Because I got up at 9, but I'm not behind.
Exactly.
Like, I stayed up till 1.
Yes, but the point that he gets up early because that sets off his structure of discipline for the day. So as long as you have a structure of discipline and you're meeting your marks, you're following his model, but not in the way like, tit for tat every single way. And so it's learning how to incorporate these systems and then create your own system, right? And finding those people that resonate with you and not taking everything for fact and really exploring, and not taking that couple Twitter posts or sound bites and then just saying, oh, everything about a certain subject, topic, person, whatever.
But so, yeah, we have comparing yourself to the proper reference group, right? Yeah. That's like, should be a no-brainer at this point. I hope so, at least. I don't know if we set out the argument exactly A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
But having the proper reference group not only allows you to figure out what you're good at, figure out what you can be good at, it also allows you to project yourself into the future and figure out if you would be happy. So by being able...
That's a weird word, happy.
Okay, well, satisfied, content.
I was going to say, define that for me.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to define happiness for everyone, but let's say satisfied, and let's say your ambitions are meeting your actions.
Yeah. You're getting to where you wanted to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you can do is compare yourself to people down the path a little bit, in different trajectories. So like, let's see, do I want to be a researcher? Let's compare myself to researchers, figure out what their skill sets are, figure out how they like to conduct their day, how much downtime do they have, how much time do they spend with other people. Okay, how about compare myself to a doctor? Like same idea. How much face-to-face time are they getting? How much time are they spending in books? What's their cash flow look like? And you can start comparing yourself around the job sphere and figure out how your wants, needs, and desires line up with people who are successful and mildly successful, and figure out where you fall on those lines. And from there, you can cross out so many options in this world of infinite possibility.
Yeah.
You need to have tools that can limit your choices. For what we talked about earlier, if you have too many choices, you're always going to think you made the wrong one and that another choice was better.
Right.
So
it's like Ray Dalio says, you have to be a hyper realist with yourself. You need to set your lofty goals, but they have to be realistic. And you figure out what's realistic by using those other people as references and then seeing where you fall in place. Now, and I totally agree with what you're saying, by the way, but I just want to throw back another thing.
I would hope you disagree with me, because then it's more fun. Because
because I'm crossed between, well, if you're only using other people to define.
You said only. Nobody said only.
Right. But if you're using that as a huge factor to define what success is, what success could look like for you, are you in a sense closing the possibilities to what your own type of success could be, right? Because depending on where you live, depending on your lifestyle, like success comes in all different forms, right? And, you know, you could be successful career-wise, but be unsuccessful with your family, or you could be very successful with your family, unsuccessfully career-wise, but to whose opinion? And like, where does like your value of what you think's important? Like, don't you think that your individual hierarchy, although it should be guided by other people's, you know, other successful people's things, don't you think it should be manifest from your own personal self, or else you're kind of getting lost in trying to be someone else, someone else's
Where
world?
do you think your value hierarchy came from?
Well, I mean, a lot of the information that I learned and that I know, and then
Where'd you get that from?
From society, from school books, from
what constructs society? Is it
people,
other people?
other people.
Oh, whoa, interesting.
There you go.
So you got all of your internal value structure has come from other people.
Yes.
Okay. So then you had to compare yourself to other people in order to acquire your internal value structure, right? You've resonated with certain values given to you as you aged from 0 to 7, from 7 to 14, different periods of your life. As you developed, and you either experienced success in those emergent development patterns or failures, and from there you've acquired different values.
Right.
So you grew up in an individualist society, in a capitalist society. You grew up in school systems. You grew up like.
No, I get it. No, yeah, but okay. But so how do you know if you're comparing yourself to the right people? Because you said that's really important, like creating the right reference group. So like, how do you know it's the right reference group?
By choosing it.
Right. But then, okay. So
that's literally the answer, because most people don't choose their reference groups. Most people refer themselves to whatever is put in front of them.
Yeah. So okay. I think a big part of this is you have to choose it, you have to play with it, and then reiterate. Because
the missing ingredient is self-awareness.
Right.
So the missing ingredient is knowing what drives you, because something drives you. And most people will come up with some idealist drive, like, oh, well, I want to help people. Like, no, you don't. You want to feel good about yourself by helping people. Oh, I want to make the world a better place. Again, no, you don't. Like, nobody wants to do that until they've fulfilled their other desires. Like, you're not that strong. Your ego is much stronger than you anticipate. And like, it's not until you've gone off and experienced the sphere expansion of going, I want to make a lot of money. Success. You did it. Okay. What's next? Yeah. I want to have these certain experience. Did it. Okay, cool. Success. And if you're really aware of those internal drives, then you can go and expand your desires until you actually come to a place of, I want to make the world a better place because I've already accomplished everything I want to. People in our generation, and since the 60s and probably for millennia before, have tried to skip a bunch of steps. Like, ooh, I want to just win the game of life, like out at the outset. So I'm going to defeat my ego.
They're entitled to winning.
Exactly. And they want to skip a bunch of steps because they recognize, like, I am one of these people where it's like, they went from wanting this to wanting this to wanting this to wanting this. This is the final goal. Well, I'm just going to shoot for that first.
Right.
And then
having the big idea
sabotaged by this first goal that I haven't met yet. Because that desire, that drive is so strong, stronger than any cerebral trick I can try to play and be like, well, no. Like, I'm supposed to meditate and kind of like, defeat my ego and all of this, what is at my stage, nonsense.
Right.
Because I haven't traveled up the tiers. I haven't traveled out the spheres of my desires. So,
and you're right. And what your desires are, what your goals are, your achievements, what defines success changes, right? And that's
Absolutely.
why, like, I was just listening to Simon Sinek, who has really good books. Start With Why. He has a bunch of really good books that you should all read. But
Start With Why.
Start With Why. Yeah, that's the one that I was just listening to or reading. And his whole driving force in life, his meaning, his thing that gets him up every day is to basically make the world a better place. But you were just knocking down. But the key to this is the way that manifested was he created his own business that was super successful, that gave him all this meaning. And because he came up with that experience that he felt that this was a system that could be told to other people that they could experience it too. So going back to what you said, he had to be successful with his own self first.
Exactly.
And then it transforms into, okay, this works. And now I want to share it with the world. Now I want to make the world a better place, which is kind of like what Ray Dalio also explains in his book about the evolution of your different stages in life. And yeah, so I totally agree with what you just said.
Well, and I mean, so many psychologists, Piaget and plenty of people after him have come up with like developmental stages where at this stage your desire is for intimacy, and at this stage your desire is for order, and like, so it's a very old idea. And I think what happens is people get hung up either by shooting ahead, or getting stuck with an old manifestation of success. So somebody in their 20s, their definition of success is to be independent. And so financial success is their primary objective, right? I got to get enough money so I can afford to be independent.
Right.
And then they're still doing it when they're 50 and they have a shitload of money and they find themselves not satisfied, in discontent and not aligned with their true inner desires because they've already satisfied it, but they got stuck in.
They didn't restructure.
Exactly. They didn't restructure, and they didn't take that self-awareness, and they didn't shift their reference group, because as you recognize your desire shift, your reference groups need to shift as well.
Yes. And another little contrarian thing is I think goals are stupid. I think systems are the correct way to approach. Like, goals are, you almost could say they're like kind of the same thing, but goals are a result of a system. And like how you said, like,
you think goals are stupid.
I think goals can be.
I think this is a different talk altogether.
No,
but I'll shit on you for a second.
Hold on, just real quick, because like how you said, like, you start here and you want to get here, and there's all these little steps, but you get stuck at this little step. And the reason that you get stuck at this little step is because you defined a goal that might be kind of hard to get to, and then you realize it might take too long, it might be too hard. But the thing is if you set up a system that you could use every day, that will lead you in that direction.
In what direction?
Up here.
What's up there?
Your ultimate goal.
Oh,
which is what I said. Hold on, but I just said that. I said that systems lead to a goal, but like you just said, with financial, being financially stable, being independent. Okay, well, once you reach that goal, what's next? You have to create something new, a new goal. And so what I'm saying is the system not only lets you attain those goals, but keeps you on a trajectory where you don't get knocked down or stop pursuing something. Because failure for humans is a big deterrent, basically. And when you set these lofty goals, it creates a lot of fear. But if you frame it in a way that's a system approach to where, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and as long as I do those every day, then I'll get to where I want to be. Take working out.
But still, you've said get to where I want to be. You've started this off by saying goals are stupid.
I said
you said goals are stupid.
But I explained myself right after.
In quotes.
Hold on.
Goals are stupid.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. You could.
Do you?
Yeah, you should. Where
you should.
Obviously, they're related in a lot of ways, but the point is the framing by saying that, okay, let's say working out, you want to lose 20 pounds. Well, every single day until you've lost those 20 pounds, you've failed at your goal. But if you create a system that says, hey, I just need to go do some physical activity 30 minutes a day. So every single day you're successful, and then you're going to keep doing it. And then you might even raise the amount of time you're exercising. And then before you know it, you reach your goal. But without failing every day, you succeeded every day. And it's the framing in which where people are more likely to do things that they're successful at. And you can be successful at simple systems. as far as goals, you're failing at them until you finally reach them. And that's the framing question, which I get what you're saying about, okay, well, what do systems do? They get you to goals. So goals are important. I get that. But it's the framing of making these big goals like, oh, I want to get a PhD. Well, that's 8 years of school. That seems hard and long. But if you just say, oh, I want to do research and eventually I want to be a doctor and whatever, and say, okay, here's my system. I go to school and you know what I mean? It's reframing that sets you up for success and builds momentum in positive.
So what you're saying is a system is a successful way to meet a goal.
Yes. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said goals are stupid, but I had the framing of being goal like oriented in base. Like you set goals so you could you know if you're like if you know how to get somewhere. And what I'm saying is like goals are okay. I'm going to take that back. Goals are important, but it's not the end all be all. It's the system in place to get to the goal. Because a lot of the times in the 8 years it takes for you to get your PhD, your goal might fucking change. But if you're on a system that is on the right trajectory, you'll be able to pivot your goal to that's on a similar line, so you're not detracting from yourself. And it's the whole failure thing. It's like I said with the working out, when you fail at your goal every day, there's a good chance you only make it 5 pounds and then you gain 20 more because you're failing. And so that's my contrarian point. Whether you fucking agree with it or not, that's just because you're one of the sheep. Okay.
Whoa. Wow. I didn't know Trump just stepped in the room.
Oh, come on.
But that's it. That's one of those moves. Let's instead of using logic, you're gonna use a fallacy to negate a source of information rather than address the information itself.
No, I'm using my truths.
And then you're calling me a sheep
because you're. Yeah, I mean okay. Where do these contrarian? What we talked about earlier? Where do these contrarian truths usually? Where can you find them? You can find them.
Well, I found mine by looking at things and coming up with my own answer. You found yours from a book that you're now reiterating and then struggling to come to terms with because I'm throwing little roadblocks at you and now I'm a sheep because I've thrown a couple speed bumps in you. You haven't even let me say my point. I was just saying goals are clearly important. That's all I've said so far.
Right.
That makes me a sheep?
No, but it's...
Okay, so let's go with that for a second. So first, goals are important. Yes, systems are required. Actually, systems are without a system, you're always going to fail meeting your goal. Without a system, your goal is only ever a dream. So yes, you definitely need a system to meet a goal. And to bring this back to what I'm trying to talk about, you need to compare yourself to the systems of other people, not just the goals of other people.
Right there.
Let me keep talking. Let me keep talking.
Okay.
So you need to compare yourself to the systems of other people, not just the goal, because most people only look at the silver lining. Most people only ever look at the reward of the goal, and they don't look at what was required to get there. And it's the systems that you're going to have to deal with on a daily basis. So when you're saying, oh, I want to be a PhD professor or whatever, well, you have to come to the terms of that means studying every day. That means reading every day. That means having to teach several classes on end. That means having to move to different universities. There's a whole series of routes that you have to go in order to attain that goal. And most people only look at the goal. But my point is that goals are still important. Yes, systems are more important.
There we go. Okay, so my whole...
I never said otherwise.
Right,
but
and I guess I started off bad by saying goals are stupid. But the whole point of what I was saying was goals shouldn't be looked at as the driving force. It's the system that gets you to the goals. It's just like when you create your own system, you're taking bits and pieces from other people that you learn and you compare yourself to, and you create your own system out of that. And it's the system that drives you to where you're trying to go. And so a lot of people are goal oriented, where they just think about the end point.
Yes.
And so that's what I was trying to say.
Gotcha.
And you're really trying to get on that. I said goals are stupid. Yeah. And I get that.
That was the first thing out of your mouth. What am I supposed to do?
I was trying to really hit home the points that that's not the thing that you should be looking at. And I shouldn't use that statement, I guess.
Shouldn't have called me a sheep either.
Right. But the point on the sheep was you find these contrarian truths where in places where everyone thinks one way because they're not really thinking, they just believe in this way of operating. And then in that little domain, you can find, oh no, that's really not the best way to operate.
I don't think that's a contrarian truth that systems are important. I think there are like thousands of systems.
Systems are more important than goals.
No, I think like the whole getting shit done, like movement that came about 10 years ago was about creating systems for success. I think it's pretty common.
Well, it's not common in my sphere of people that I talk to. So
bad reference group.
Yeah, exactly. No, totally. But but I think that's the place that a lot of people find themselves in.
Yeah,
absolutely. They're surrounded by people who think a certain way, and is like, there's all this, like, I call them, like, mansplaining in a sense, like these little stupid facts that you learn in high school or something like that you never really verified. But then you go, or like the things that your parents tell you that are little white lies that you never really found the truth about until later on in life. And then it totally like opens up to a whole new possibility of the way things work. Mm-hmm. And, for me at least, like goal orientation was looked at as the most important thing without really providing, okay, what's the best way to get there? Oh, you got to create good systems. And like, that wasn't there for me. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that. Not maybe with that example. But.
Yeah. Well, they find themselves without the habits necessary to reach those goals.
Yeah. And
without wanting to engage in those habits.
Yeah. And especially our generation where they want everything now, they don't have the tools to go towards long-term goals, long-term satisfaction being more powerful than the immediate satisfaction. Right. And yeah, so
something related. I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck a while ago by Mark Manson. Great book.
I didn't read it because I was like, oh, look at that fucking title. Like, they're just trying to get people to read this because they said fuck in the title. But that was my bet.
Typical sheep reaction.
Yeah, I guess so. That's an anti-sheep reaction.
But so anyway, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And he talks about a really cool, very contrarian viewpoint, which is, I'm going to relate it back to what we've been talking about, that rather than looking at the pleasures associated with a certain goal or a certain decision, you need to look at the pains. So it's like everybody wants to be in good shape, right? Everyone's like, well, yeah, I want to look like that. I want to feel like that. But when you recognize what are the pains involved? Oh, and actual physical pain on a daily basis. At the end of each set, physical pain of being sore, the mental and emotional pain of restricting diet when necessary, like the discipline to go to the gym when you're not motivated. Like there's a lot of pains involved. And if you can't come to terms with those pains, you're screwed. You're never going to get to the pleasures. And so a lot of people end up comparing the pleasure with their current state and not the pain with their current state. And so they'll say, I want this goal. And then when they encounter that first bit of pain, like you were talking about, it's like, oh, I didn't sign up for that. I just signed up for the good shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so his point was that you need to contemplate the pains involved with your decisions, with your goals. And you need to compare your current state of pain and your current types of life pains with the pains of the person that you want to be or think you want to be. I know several people who were like, well, I want to do this. So even for me, when I started off in college, I want to be a civil engineer. I didn't know where that goal came from. I had it since I was like in third grade. And then I started realizing the pains involved and it was like, oh, never mind. I don't want to do this. I finished college and got a degree in kinesiology, started working as a personal trainer, opened up my own gym. And then I realized for me to engage in the financial success that I was looking for, I would need to hire a bunch of employees. I would need to pay them at low rates. I would need to engage in a lot of behavior that I didn't want to engage in. I didn't want to have the pain of being, I would think I'd be a shitty manager. Like
it's not, your talents wouldn't be used best in that
exactly.
Yeah.
And so the pains I didn't want. And so if I had looked at the pains from the beginning of like, oh, what does success look like? What does this path lead to? And solely focus on the pains, I could ask myself, is that something I want to experience?
Yeah.
And that could be done by interviewing other people in similar fields and comparing myself to the right reference group and not asking how much they enjoy it, but asking what's the thing you like least?
Yeah. Like Lex Friedman or like David Goggins, they think that meaning comes out of the suffering. You need to suffer to find your meaning. And I think that goes along with what you're saying is like, or like, maybe those pains are the things that you need to attack. And it's that those are really the places that show you the path opposed to saying, oh, I want to avoid them, which is kind of what you're saying.
So I think they're kind of taking a little psychological backdoor, because what's been found is that people provide justification for things they've suffered for.
Okay.
So out of suffering comes meaning, because people have to post hoc justify what they've done. Like they have to justify after the fact, like, oh, well, I did this because it meant so much to me. But that meaning just came out of psychological trickery to make it so they can justify having suffered so much, especially when it was by choice. People who suffer needlessly and outside of their choice, they would go crazy if they couldn't find some sort of meaning in it, right? If they couldn't find some sort of like, oh, well, I'm growing personally. I'm learning how to distance myself from this and find inner peace. It's something that psychologically just has to happen for people to stay sane.
Yeah, like Viktor Frankl, where suffering in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, he was able to find his meaning. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
So it's definitely something. It's something to keep in mind, but it's not something like, well, let's go suffer.
No, of course not. Of course not. But you find out a lot about yourself in those areas, and if you avoid suffering, like what you're saying, then like how do you, like, you're gonna stop on most of your goals, because almost every goal is gonna require suffering. And so in that sense, the suffering and taking on that suffering is going to get you to where you want to be in that sense.
Absolutely.
But I totally see your point. Yeah.
You need to pick suffering that you can deal with, that you're okay with. And that's never going to be, it's never going to be pain or suffering that you're like, oh, that just floats my boat. Like that's the shit I like to do.
Yeah.
But it's something where for you to attain your goals, for you to find success and be able to expand your set of desires to the next stage of your ego's evolution, you need to have pain points or suffering points that you can deal with, or you're going to be just severely unhappy.
Yeah, or not going to be able to follow through. Like go back to dieting, right? Like okay, you want to be an ultra healthy person, and so you want to do the ketogenic diet or something like that. Well, if you were eating cake and sugar and all this stuff for every day before that, to go from 100% to 0% is going to be really hard. But if you say, hey, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, but I'm going to take out all complex carbs or simple carbs. Wait, is it complex? Simple carbs? I forgot. Anyways, white carbohydrates. And if you just say, hey, I'm going to eat anything that I want.
What are you saying?
Like what you said about picking your pain points and not taking too much in.
And then you say, hey.
I'm working on that, guys. You don't realize these things until you watch yourself back, and I do a lot of idiosyncrasies.
You just like to say, hey, that's all. Just really like to say, hey.
Hey, pay attention. But yeah, like, you pick your suffering so that way you only suffer one thing at the beginning, and then once you be accustomed to that, then you can increase it. Like, taking cold showers. Well, just start doing 20 seconds at the end of every shower, and then slowly.
Is this still related to losing weight?
I mean, yeah, you take cold showers to lose weight too. There's a lot of information on there, but we're gonna get out of that. But you get my point. Like,
I guess you're saying.
So you take it one step at a time.
Yeah, you're taking pain points that you can manage.
Yeah,
that you can deal with.
And then once you build that, then you expand.
Because being able to deal with pain, you have a threshold.
Exactly.
You have a threshold for pain, and that will eventually get bigger.
Right. And it takes a lot of cognitive willpower to push through pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a limited resource.
Yeah, it's a little muscle. It's essentially a muscle. It's not a muscle.
Yeah.
But it works like a muscle. It can get fatigued. Exactly. You need to replenish it, and synapses need to actually grow over time.
Yeah. And so if you just have to use all willpower for too long, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be systematic at the way you build that up.
Still harping on the point. But so yeah, being able to pick your pains, and this is exactly coming back to, you can compare other people's pains to your own and be able to determine from the outset whether it's something you're willing to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Like
totally.
And without that skill set, without understanding how to do that, and by being discouraged from comparing yourself to other people, you're just walloping yourself with more work than necessary. You're going to be walking down pieces of a maze that keep ending in dead ends because you're not aware of the pain points. And once you experience them, you realize you're unhappy, unsatisfied, and wish you did something else.
Right.
So being able to compare yourself with other people and being good at comparing yourself with other people alleviates you of a lot of extra work and helps you navigate this world of endless opportunity, infinite options, and the endless fucking Netflix scroll of like, oh, I don't want to watch that. There's probably something better. I don't want to watch that. Oh, let's watch this for 5 minutes. Oh, there's probably something better.
Yeah. Oh, God, all the time. Okay. Another thing in this. So it's important to compare yourself to people, but are you striving to be just like that person, or are you comparing yourself to that person to gain tools to then create your own like unique outcome, right? Because let's say if I want to be just like Elon Musk, I want to make an electric car company, I want to do this, I want to make a rocket company. It's like, well, then I didn't really create anything new, right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, and again,
where does that line separate from comparing yourself to making sure you're online, being on the trajectory you need to go, versus differentiating yourself to make sure you create your own path?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Back to self-awareness, right? That was a secret ingredient from earlier. It's like you have to know your own strengths. You have to know your own weaknesses. You have to know what you want at this moment in life. And if you want to be something like Elon Musk, you can't do what he did,
right?
Because he did something brand new, right? Yeah. But you can look at his system. You can look at what led to this and then realize, oh, that's a lot of uncertainty or seeming uncertainty. You have to have a lot of knowledge of the future. You have to hedge all of your bets into one kind of trajectory where you are certain that you're going to be contributing to this future. And you have to not listen to conformists and people that are telling you to diversify, to make sure you have a lot of options, because a lot of options means low depth, high breadth, right? It means like, okay, well, I'm going to get this degree and I'm going to work at this firm because from there I'll be able to transfer to any other firm. And then I'm going to do this other thing that I think is going to change the future on the side. But nobody is changing the future on the side, right? Nobody's doing that by achieving breadth and options and maintaining potential. No, the people who are making changes are taking all of their potential and putting it into real, right? There's all of their effort towards one thing. And so you can look at somebody like Elon Musk, you can look at somebody like Peter Thiel and say, okay, I need to put all of my eggs in one basket or maybe two baskets. But most people are going to tell you to do otherwise. Most people are going to say, well, that's probably not the smart bet, because they're comparing themselves to different reference groups. And so once again, it's like awareness of yourself and awareness of who you're comparing yourself to.
Totally. And an example of using a total different philosophy that brings success is like Scott Adams. So his whole
Who's Scott Adams.
Scott Adams, he's the Dilbert comic creator. Okay. He does a bunch of TED Talks. You should check him out. They're pretty cool. And he's mega rich now. But so his whole philosophy was different. His whole philosophy was basically learn how to do a bunch of different things to like mediocre or like, passable extent. And then that way it opens up opportunities. It opens up your fluency in discovering or talking about different points of view, and you become more valuable in a sense. And his whole thing was just keep failing, but keep on diversifying your talents, and then eventually it'll pay off. And for him, it did, but his goal wasn't to change the world, right? And so his whole set of outcomes was a lot different, and he didn't necessarily have that one thing that he was super interested in, right? And so like his system, his philosophy, like came to good success in his own version, but it's completely different in, like, Peter Thiel would say that's lunacy to do what he did. But so that's the importance on understanding your own, what you want, and then finding your own reference group based off of your goals.
And Scott Adams' success is going to be more applicable to most people. Most people grew up, at our age, we grew up with internet.
Yeah.
So we got exposed to so many things, developed so many interests. Now parents are having their kids do fucking 15 different kinds of sports.
Yeah.
And so the likelihood of developing a wide range of interests is ever increasing. And so somebody like Scott Adams, who discovered success by creating scope,
right,
that's going to be more applicable to most people, because most people aren't autistic.
Totally.
But So yeah, most people are gonna
most people aren't the founders of markets. They're not the founders of,
because that involves just the most narrow vision. Like, I am interested in so many different things. And so looking at somebody like Scott Adams, who found success by creating scope and by finding convergence with a bunch of different ideas, that's more applicable to me, more inspiring to me. And I could probably gain more from looking at his methods and his system for success than I could Elon Musk. I enjoy too many things. I enjoy people too much. I'm as far as I know, I'm not.
And there's a paradox in this thing too, because when you can be an Elon Musk or Peter Thiel and be so singularly, it's one of those words that I can't say today, but singularly focused. Okay. Oh my gosh. It's a brain rewiring issue. I'm not totally sure. But once you are able to make that monopoly, right? Tesla, they're the biggest car manufacturer in the United States, like GM, Toyota, and there was one other one. It's more valuable than all of those combined, right? And now that he's created this monopoly, now he's able to make a rocket company. Now he's making a tunnel company. Now he's making Neuralink. And so it's not to say he wasn't interested in a lot of different things, but he had to take that singular approach. And then out of that success and financial freedom, now he's able to create these other things, right? And so, but he's he's not someone.
He's not somebody you can compare yourself to.
Most people shouldn't compare yourself to him in that sense, but you could find, and I do find, passion and meaning and inspiration in what he did, how he did it, and what he thinks is important. So being able to pull from him is super valuable, but modeling him step for step is not something that's smart for me. Right?
Well, and that shows skill in comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah. And when you said awareness, how do you gain awareness? You read, you learn constantly. And that's the thing. Like, I know so many people, I would say everyone but my brother that I work with has not read a book since they graduated high school.
You're joking.
I swear to God. How
do you still work there, bro?
It's paying the bills while I'm in school, man. Almost.
Are you serious?
I swear to God, yeah.
Actually hasn't read a book since high school.
Yeah.
Oh, that's painful.
And so when you get in that like stagnation, like you're
go read a book.
I know, yeah. And that, I mean, and in today's age, like, go watch a TED Talk every day. Like, there's so many ways to just broaden your scope in general. And like, it's a lifelong thing. Like, whether you want to be a psychologist or not, you should be reading as much as you can about psychology, because that's how the brain works. That's how you work. And the more you learn about that, the more you understand why you do things. The more you understand why you do things, the more you're going to understand what you want to do. And it's just common sense. But yet there's such a huge portion of people who don't do it. And the worst part about it is there's people in third world countries that would kill to have an endless amount of books to read.
They haven't read a book?
Yeah, isn't that insane? Yeah. And so that's why it's so important that your mission needs to be a lifelong learner. If you don't succeed at anything, but you've continued to learn every single day, you're going to be so much more fulfilled than many of the people by the end of their lifetimes.
They haven't read a book? It's still fucking mind-blowing. That's painful.
Yeah, man.
I was just breaking down, okay, if I read a book a month, how many books do I get to read in the rest of my life? And it was like 600.
Yeah.
And I was super disappointed. So I was like, okay, a book a week. Like, I get like 2,500. Like, that sounds better. If I picture 2,500 books on a wall and it's like, I read all of those and I've taken notes on all of those, I'll feel pretty good about being able to contribute intellectually or contribute to society in such a way that I feel proud of what I've done, which is one of my main motivators is to feel good about my contribution. So I can say, hey, I did good. Like, I used my skills and tool sets and used my smarts, to effectively make an impact.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it, they're all probably going to watch this and just give me shit.
For sure they are. Yeah. Well, I'm not go read a fucking book. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh, man.
No. Oh, man. Man.
So
that's painful.
I don't know. I just think it's interesting how people fall into that where, like, do you think they don't have a desire to read a book, or do you think it's like they don't feel they're going to get value from it? Do you think it's fear-based? Like, why do you think people get in that mode of stagnation where they're not learning anything new? They're just complacent.
It's convenient.
Because it's convenient?
Convenient. I mean, for something...
Because they're avoiding the pain?
Well, okay, so I'll try to break it down from my perspective. First, you go to school and you're told to read a book because the teacher told you to.
Right.
Right? So immediately it's a chore.
Right.
I have to read this book even though I don't want to. It's fucking Nathaniel Hawthorne, The Scarlet Letter, and there's a sentence that lasts a page and a half. What the fuck is this man saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the Odyssey is dope, but when you're like...
Odyssey,
yeah. Oh my God. The Odyssey it's awesome. But when you're like, 14 years old, it's pretty thick.
Well, from my perspective, anytime somebody tells me to do something, I don't want to do it that much.
Totally.
Like, it's like, for example, if you discovered a piano, you're way more likely to play it than if somebody puts you in front of a piano and says, play it.
Yep.
Like, so if you get to discover a book and read it and realize you like it, you're way more likely to read. I was lucky and unlucky.
Well, you're a disagreeable person at heart, though.
Me?
Well, like, yeah. Like,
Oh, yeah. I'm super
traits.
high on disagreeableness. Yeah, I love disagreeing.
Yeah. But go ahead.
But so, like, I was lucky to discover Harry Potter in a bookstore on a trip, and unlucky in that it ruined other books for me for quite a while. Like, I was reading books at school. I was like, well, shit, this book's no Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But at least I knew I enjoyed reading. And so then from there, I don't think I read leisurely. I read books in school, but I didn't really read much leisurely until high school, just a little bit. And then in college, I started reading like Stephen King and other things. And then from there, I branched out.
Yeah, it wasn't until I was completely done with high school to when I actually started reading books. Because like in high, it was the same thing with me. When they told me to read something, you bet your ass I'm spark noting that thing.
Yeah.
I'm not reading it. My goal was to figure out to do the least work possible, which, is a success in itself in a lot of ways. But yeah, it wasn't until I went out, actually came upon something that actually changed my life and was beneficial, and then I was like, whoa, I understand the power in that. And it had to be this like self-fulfilling thing that I did on my own.
So really quick, because you said I want to do the least work possible, and I totally related to that. And there's a finding through psychological studies that show that when parents praise children for their smarts, they're more likely to want to do less work and rely on their smarts. When parents praise children for doing their work, for like, you must have worked really hard to do this, then that child is more likely to do more work and to actually try to do things rather than say, oh, I'm just smart. I got told my whole damn life that I was really smart. And so I was like, yeah, I'm just smart. I don't need to do this.
Yeah. I don't need to study. Like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And it's like, shit, that backfired.
Yep. And another thing on that is like, okay, let's say, take you for example, like you're pretty damn smart, like going through high school, but there's no reward for being extra smart in a lot of ways, especially public schools. Like, it might be different in private schools, but in public schools, it's like, extra information. Well, none of that comes out on your grade at the end of the year.
You can actually get punished for putting extra information.
Right. It's not incentivized to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a fundamental problem that, pervades our whole system of how we teach people, from parenting to schools, everything. And
but super tangent aside.
Yeah.
So why do they not read books? One, they start off by being told to read books they don't want to, and then being told to read it because the teacher said so. Not because, it's going to teach you a life lesson that is going to apply to you right now. Like, read holes because you're going to learn some semblance of self-esteem, whatever the case may be. And so from there, it's like work they don't want to do, work they had to do, and then work they got a bad grade if they didn't do.
Yeah.
So now they
want to avoid
that.
Yeah.
And so that's their whole exposure to reading.
Mm-hmm.
Then now it's like, well, why would I read when I can watch a video about it that's 10 minutes compared to reading for 4 hours?
Yeah.
Or since I didn't read very much, it takes me 5 minutes to read a page. So that's reading for 10 hours for this book. Or I could listen to a podcast about it. I could listen to my friend who has done the research and then engage in a conversation there. I can watch movies. I can smoke weed. Yeah. How is it going to help me anyway? Because I am just doing this job and I have no 5-year plan or 10-year plan that involves reading. So there's really low motivation.
Yeah.
It's not until you find books that you enjoy reading.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like they don't know what books to read.
Exactly.
They read the wrong book that then made them think all reading is bad in a sense, or not for me. And so it's finding the right things. How did I find the right books? I looked into other people And then I took their book recommendations, and then I saw these patterns of like, oh, all these people that I find inspirational and I like what they're doing, they all kind of go to these same books, and then all these same books tell this deeper meaning, and it all connects. But you gotta do the work, you know. And Stephen Pressfield, you gotta do the
work. For me, it's actually really similar to earlier when we were talking about expanding spheres of desires. If you and I are recommending right now, we're recommending a lot of nonfiction. Because that's where we are in our stages of desire. Oh, yeah. I didn't start off wanting to read nonfiction.
100%. 110%.
I started off wanting to read fiction only. It was like, I don't want to read that. So it took actually going through those different stages of like, okay, I read Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Stephen King.
It's a fucking I went Harry Potter, all the Lord of the Rings books, and then I went to Dune. That was my pathway. But then after that, I was just like, okay, now I want everything, you know? And then it's like, what does Dune tell you? It tells you all these geopolitical truths that are in real life, right? But they just framed it in a fictitious way that kept me interested, made a cool narrative that got me attached. And now I see these actual narratives in real life, you know what I mean?
But so you experienced this fictitious version of something, you found yourself interested in something that was going on in that fiction world. And then you wanted to explore that in your world. Exactly, and so it was, once again, these stages of development that you had to go through. And so I wouldn't recommend people like, I haven't read since high school. I wouldn't say, well, start reading 0 to 1 or read 48, maybe read the 48 Laws of Power.
Don't tell anyone that. I shouldn't have put it up here. It's a secret. I'm just kidding.
But definitely read Harry Potter, read a Stephen King book, read maybe not Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a little bit too detail oriented.
Oh, I love it though.
Yeah, but there's a lot of you really have to envision a world and get to a place where you care about what color the trees' leaves are.
Yeah,
because sometimes it's a little bit too. I mean, the movies are better than the books, in my opinion.
What?
I know. Movies are better than the books.
Well, okay. I watched all the movies because I was way younger, and the books were too dense for me when I was younger. And then I went back and read the books. So I think watching the movies first was able to help me structure the whole book. Like if I had to create that all in my mind without having some sort of reference, it would have been a lot harder, I think.
So I read The Fellowship of the Ring, and then I watched The Fellowship of the Ring, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to wait for the movies.
Really?
Movies were so good. Okay, so Harry Potter was the reverse. Harry Potter, the books destroy the movies. Destroyed.
Difference in opinion there. It's okay.
You think the movies are better than the books in Harry Potter? Or you're different?
No, difference in Lord of the Rings.
Okay. I was like, what?
No, Harry Potter hands down. But in my opinion, the book is almost always better than the movie.
Jojo Rabbit is a big exception. Jojo Rabbit. Have you watched that movie yet?
Yeah, I have though. Yeah, it's like a cartoon overlaid with real life.
No.
Oh wait.
No.
Which one am I thinking?
Jojo Rabbit is with Jojo, who is a 8-year-old Nazi youth growing up in
I have not
war-stricken Germany.
Okay.
I've recommended to you so many. Go watch Jojo Rabbit. It's such a damn good movie. But the book sucks.
What's the other rabbit one? It's with Looney Tunes characters.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about Space Jam?
Never mind.
Oh, you're talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
No, Jojo Rabbit. Yeah, that's a great movie, but the book sucked.
But okay, another thing that I wanted to point out too about going on about why don't people read anymore? My dog came in my bed. So I was listening to Daniel Kahneman.
Nice.
I was listening to a podcast that he was on, and they were talking about the difference in common knowledge. And what he said was, you didn't have to ask, did you read the New York Times? And there was everyone did. And there's these set of stories, these set of information that was baseline common knowledge for most of the people. But that's gone away. And now common knowledge is memes. It's the little Instagram posts and ads. And so I think that's another huge shift on why people are, they're not reading anymore. They're not learning in that way. They're learning in a whole new different types of ways.
Well, I forget I didn't come up with this idea on my own, obviously. I forget who I heard talking about this, but they were talking about how we don't have a shared worldview anymore. We don't have a shared stage.
Right.
You go online, I go online. We're looking at completely different things. We go to the same website, youtube.com. You're looking at completely different videos than I am.
Right.
That's true for everyone. That's true for the person you hang out with all the time. That's true for you and your loved one, you and your partner. That's true. Like anybody you know, you're not looking at the same information ever unless you share it directly to them. Like even if you and I type in the same stuff,
we're going to get
different results. And so there's no guaranteed shared information. Like that age is over. And so we all have very unique individual worlds we live in. And so there's very little crossover. We can't even be sure that we know the same information. I might have a fact that is completely opposite to your fact.
Yeah. And the worst part about it too is that like with that comes like, even if you do see a fact, like how do you know it's true? You know what I mean? And it's not only do we not have this shared belief of facts, we have doubt in all these facts in general too, you know? And so it makes everything dicey when we're trying to come to truths and objectives and goals and all that.
What needs to happen, my opinion, people need to be more comfortable with ambiguity. They need to be okay with a little bit of uncertainty, and they need to be less attached to their beliefs because so when you discover a truth, or when like somebody talks about your belief, and you state your belief, the same part of your brain that lights up when you're thinking about yourself lights up.
Right.
So beliefs are inherently part of your self-concept. They're part of like you,
right?
How your mind thinks of you is composed of your belief system. But if you take a different view, a little bit more distance from yourself, and recognize that, you know, your subjective perspective is just a stream of phenomenon experience, and you know, there's not one construct, it's actually shifting constantly, then you can hold on to your view as dependent on the facts presented before you. And then you can be sure of a belief so long as somebody doesn't present facts that prove it wrong.
Right.
If you have that perspective, then you're more likely to seek out contrarian viewpoints. You're more likely to compare your beliefs with people who differ from you, which is another really big value point in comparing yourself with other people, is being able to compare yourself with people who are opposite to you.
Yeah,
people who view differently. Like
they're the most fun people to talk to, by the way.
For sure, because especially if you can engage in a non-emotional way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely key.
Because like you and I can yell or insult or whatever, and it's like, cool. Like that was fun. Like that was good, right? We did good.
Yeah.
But some people
fucking sheep.
Exactly. Some people have a really hard time doing it, and that's because their self-construct is so embedded with their belief systems, and typically it's a weak connection.
Yeah.
So it's the people who have the most vulnerability that are most defending their beliefs.
Right. Because if their belief systems prove wrong, then they have a loss of identity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's scary for people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's why you can't talk to people about religion.
Yeah.
Why you typically can't talk to people about politics.
Yeah.
Because they don't really know how they came up with those perspectives, because they got them from mere exposure. Like,
right.
And it's just true for most people. Like,
yeah.
Like whether you're atheist, agnostic, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, you got it from exposure.
Yeah.
Like, no, you didn't come up with that. Promise you.
Yeah. Like, isn't it like, it's like over 80% of people's political views come from their parents, right? It's their exposure from your parents that made you think a certain way.
Exactly. And so then when those get questioned, you start feeling how shaky your foundation is. It's scary.
Yeah.
And you're like, shut the fuck up. I don't want I got this house of cards in this isolated room. Don't you fucking touch my house of cards. I'll be pissed if you touch my house of cards.
Right. But it's an inflection point, because once you realize that, when your worldview is shaken, really that's an opportunity to expand your world so much. And that's that thing where you gotta face your fears, you gotta test them, you gotta embrace the little bit of pain in order to get to the other side, you know? Because
it's an opportunity for birth. It's an opportunity for a rebirth of yourself. And I mean, I've never given birth, but I imagine it's pretty painful.
Kidney stones? You haven't had kidney stones yet?
Never had. Dude, have you had kidney stones?
You got a bunch of weird operations. I don't know. Maybe you have.
No kidney stones. Have you?
No.
Okay, yeah. Jesus. No, not yet. I don't plan on it. But yeah, so comparing yourself to other people is like another huge opportunity that if you aren't good at comparing yourself, you're definitely not going to compare yourself to other people, and you're not going to do it from an objective place.
Definitely.
And for me, it's been helpful to read people who have different viewpoints than me, to kind of poke holes in my own arguments, and to also recognize where someone's coming from. Because I know in the political sphere, you can just like make the assumption that the person on the opposing viewpoint is just like an ignoramus or something, like, oh, you're fucking dumb shit.
I like that word.
Yeah, ignoramus is great. But if you actually try to understand where they're coming from, then you can empathize with them. You can have compassion for them. You can meet on their plane, at least, so you can have somewhat constructive of a conversation. And you can also give up on the idea of convincing them of your viewpoint. And when you give up on convincing somebody, you have the best chance of convincing them. Like, right. You know, because when you like start just talking about, well, this is, I know them, but this is how I view it. And then they can at least engage and empathize with you. And it takes the empathy of like actually putting yourself in the other person's shoes to go, like the same way, bringing it back to the island, that listening as a third party, as one person is teaching another person, you're not having to defend your own belief system. So then now you're more open.
Right. And you're seeing both points of view and where they're coming from, how it's manifesting.
Because when you feel like you have to defend your belief system, you're completely shut off and you're only going to cherry pick.
Yeah, you're put armor on, so you can't be agile in your movements.
Exactly. And you're going to be like, oh, you fucked up there.
Yeah.
Oh, you said it sucks.
Yeah. And it's something that's helps a lot in this is having a good partner that like intellectual partner that you're able to talk about these things. Like, you know, every time when I know you, because he reads a lot faster than I do, but so sometimes you'll lap me in a book and we'll be talking, there's like all these really cool ideas that I don't know where they're coming from, but in a sense you could get to test them out on me because I'm not coming from that background knowledge. And when we come to these really cool outcomes, we're finding these truths, we're validating some stuff read or invalidating it, right? And it's having someone that you can intellectually go deep with and feel comfortable with is a great way to like open yourself up to this. And then, so I think that's...
And I think in that intellectually going deep with somebody, you need to be with somebody who's around your...
Right, yeah.
Your same depth.
And your reference circle. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I actually think good to have someone who's better than you, someone who's near same as you, and somebody who's worse at you. Because the person who's like more advanced is going to teach you things. Mm-hmm. The person who's near you, you get to kind of work things out with. The person who's worse than you or behind you, you get to teach to. And in my opinion, teaching is the best form of learning.
100%.
Because that's when you actually get to recall things and reconstruct things.
And when you have to teach someone who doesn't have all the tools that you have to simplify everything. And that process of simplifying a really complicated thing and being able to describe it, it shows your like literacy within the subject. It shows your competence. Like if you can explain
it to a 5-year-old,
like electro quantum mechanics or something like that, to someone who's never taking those physics classes, like you're an absolute expert, and like almost no one can do that, right? And so your ability to teach and explain shows you where you're at, and it also just helps you keep on growing for sure. Like if in all my engineering classes, like I do physics tutoring and math tutoring, and I credit like my higher level than, you know, some of my peers due to the fact that I'm going over this stuff, teaching people who don't know what they're doing yet. And it's like, it's crucial to my learning, you know?
Yeah. Nice. So I think coming up to an end. So like we've been doing book recommendation. We talked about Peter Thiel a couple times already. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. He talks essentially about how to bring something out of nothing, how important technology is in creating the future rather than as opposed to globalization.
In a better world.
Exactly. And the different kind of thinking that is required to go from 0 to 1 as opposed to from 1 to many, because most people are trying to copy the one that's been to make the many, and very few people are actually committed to creating new technology.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that really rocked the way that I think about the world is his view of competition, and how competition as an ideology doesn't really get you anywhere. It's a zero-sum game. But and monopolies and when they can manifest themselves, like let's say a Google or a Tesla or something like that, it gives them the freedom to then create and innovate in a way that really drives us forward. And I'm not saying that I completely agree with that or I still have my things about monopolies, and they can definitely go way wrong. But it totally opened my eyes to the good that comes out of it. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
Well, and recognizing how much resources get wasted in competition.
Exactly.
Like you have to be constantly trying to battle your competitors, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big thing that I took away was the importance of looking for secrets, right? Like so many people, including myself, spend most of their lives thinking they know everything about life, like, oh yeah, I know it all. But instead realizing the world is filled with mysteries and that it takes some investigation to discover things that aren't already known. And with that, the world becomes a magical place. And what you do with your life suddenly becomes a treasure hunt. Right. You're a little Indiana Jones going on an adventure, trying to discover a new secret to bring to the forefront of humanity. And that to me is really exciting and sounds like a lot of fun. So that was, I think, my biggest takeaway is looking for secrets. So yeah, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, pretty rad book. Very quick read. Hold your hand. It's based on a class that he taught at Stanford, if that says anything about the quality of the book.
Yep.
But so if you made it through, this was a very different type of talk. We definitely meandered, and that was the plan.
Yeah. I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah, I thought I had a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you made it to the end, you're amazing.
Yeah, give us some feedback if you made it to the end. Let us know what you thought about this style versus a more focused style on a certain topic or book or whatever. We're still exploring, how we want to do things. But I personally, I really like this where we're free to go where we want.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. See you next time. Ta-ta.